Manhattan glitters 80 stories below as she stands on the penthouse balcony, one hand protectively cradling her 8-month pregnant belly. The phone in her trembling hand displays TMZ interview in 5 minutes. A single tear traces her cheek. They say the most dangerous creature isn't the one that attacks without warning, but the one that's been patient, watching, learning your weaknesses while you believed it powerless. For 7 years, she played the perfect wife to a man who collected power, like others collect art. She smiled at the right parties, signed the right papers, ignored the late nights. She believed the dream she was sold, until the photos arrived. Now she stands at the precipice between two impossible choices: silent submission or total war. The world thinks she's broken, the fragile, abandoned wife. They don't see what's happening behind her eyes. They don't know that sometimes, when you take everything from someone, you leave them with nothing to lose. And nothing is more dangerous than a mother with nothing to lose. Jennifer Lawrence stood on the balcony of the 432 Park Avenue penthouse, her hand gently caressing her 8-month pregnant belly. Far below, New York City sprawled in a glittering tapestry of lights and shadows. Oblivious to her pain, her phone rang the screen displaying TMZ interview in 5 minutes. A single tear rolled down her cheek as she whispered into the cool night air. "You think I'd stay silent? You're about to lose everything." "Jeff." She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked back into the $169 million penthouse that had been her prison for the past month. Every marble surface, every piece of custom furniture that she had personally selected as an interior designer now felt like a monument to her husband's betrayal. The interview would change everything, for better or worse, by morning. America would know the truth about billionaire tech mogul Jeff Bezos. 6 months earlier, morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse kitchen. Jennifer moved with practiced grace, preparing Jeff's favorite breakfast: poached eggs on avocado toast with a precisely measured espresso. Her baby bump, just beginning to show at 3 months, filled her with a quiet joy that balanced the growing unease in her marriage. "Jeff, breakfast is ready," she called toward his home office. Jeff Bezos emerged, eyes fixed on his phone, thumbs typing rapidly. At 60, he maintained the intensity that had built his e-commerce empire, his bald head and penetrating gaze giving him the look of a predator, even in casual attire. "Can't stay. Early meeting with investors from Dubai." He barely glanced at the carefully prepared meal. "The board meeting is moved to Thursday. I'll be in Seattle until then." Jennifer nodded, swallowing her disappointment. "That's the third trip this month. I have the ultrasound appointment on. Reschedule it." He cut her off, finally looking up from his phone. His expression softened marginally. "This deal could add billions to our net worth. Isn't that worth missing one doctor's visit? Our net worth." The phrase hung in the air. After 7 years of marriage, Jennifer knew better. There was no hour in Jeff's world, only his, that she was permitted to share as long as she remained useful and compliant. The doorbell chimed, saving her from responding. "That'll be Glenn. She has those foundation papers for me to sign," Jeff said, already moving toward the door. Glenn Close entered with the commanding presence that had made her one of the most feared corporate attorneys in America. At 77, her sharp blue eyes missed nothing, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun that emphasized her angular features. "Jennifer, dear, you're glowing," Glenn said warmly, though her eyes conveyed a different message: concern, perhaps even warning. "Just the papers?" Jeff asked impatiently. Glenn nodded, handing him a leather portfolio. "The usual confidentiality provisions are in place. Page 6 needs your initials as well." Jeff signed without reading, his phone buzzing again. He glanced at the screen, and Jennifer caught the flicker of something in his expression. Eagerness. The screen displayed simply, Z. "I need to take this. See yourself out." "Glenn." He moved toward the elevator, phone already at his ear, voice dropping to a murmur Jennifer couldn't quite catch. As the elevator doors closed, Glenn turned to Jennifer. "How are you really doing, My dear, Jennifer busied herself clearing the untouched breakfast. Fine. Busy with the nursery designs. The contractor starts next week on the Aspen House renovation. Glenn's hand, cool and dry, covered Jennifer's. 7 years as your husband's attorney means I notice patterns. If you ever need to talk about anything, I'm not just Jeff's lawyer. Before Jennifer could respond, the older woman pressed a business card into her hand with a personal number scrawled on the back. Day or night, she said meaningfully, then left as efficiently as she had arrived. Jennifer stared at the card, an inexplicable chill running through her. She slipped it into her pocket, trying to dismiss the sense of foreboding that had become her constant companion. The exclusive Manhattan bistro buzzed with the lunch crowd of New York's elite. Jennifer spotted Dwayne Johnson's imposing figure at a corner table. At 52, Jeff's longtime friend and business partner commanded attention even in the power lunch setting, his custom suit barely containing his muscular frame. Jennifer! He stood, enveloping her in a careful hug that avoided her growing belly. You look incredible. Pregnancy suits you. Thanks for meeting me. Dwayne, I needed to get out of the penthouse. A flicker of something discomfort crossed his features before his trademark smile returned. How's the little heir to the Bezos fortune doing? Active. Keeps me up at night. She paused as the waiter poured water. Much like thoughts of my husband's strange behavior lately. Dwayne's smile tightened. Strange Jeff's always been intense, especially with the new satellite venture launching. It's not work intensity. It's the secrecy, the trips, the missed calls. She leaned forward. Dwayne, you've known Jeff longer than anyone. If something was going on, whoa, he held up his hands. Jeff's under tremendous pressure, the regulatory hearings, the international expansion. It's taking a toll. You're not answering my question? Dwayne sighed, his expression uncharacteristically serious. Jennifer, some questions are better left unasked in marriages like yours. Marriages like mine. She felt her cheeks flush. High profile, high stakes. Look around. He gestured subtly to the room full of power players. Half the men here have arrangements their wives pretend not to know about. It's the price of admission to the Billionaire Boys Club. The casual cruelty of his assessment struck her like a physical blow. I didn't sign up for an arrangement. Didn't you? His tone was gentle, but devastating. 7 years ago, you were a talented but struggling interior designer. Now you have houses on 3 continents, a collection of rare art, and access to resources most people can't imagine. Everything has a price. Jennifer. She stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her water glass. I need to use the restroom. In the luxurious bathroom, Jennifer splashed cold water on her face, avoiding her reflection. When she emerged, she nearly collided with a man waiting in the hallway. Mrs. Bezos, what a fortunate coincidence. She recognized Mark Cuban immediately, Jeff's longtime rival, and the man her husband described as a shark with a vendetta. At 65, Cuban retained the intensity and directness that had made him a billionaire investor. Mr. Cuban, I was just leaving. A shame, I was hoping to discuss something of mutual interest. His eyes flicked to the dining room where Dwayne was now on his phone, then back to her. Perhaps a more private venue, the bar across the street in 10 minutes. Every instinct told her to decline, to return to the safety of her gilded cage. Yet something in Cuban's knowing expression made her nod slightly before continuing past him. 20 minutes later, seated in a quiet booth, Mark Cuban came directly to the point. Your husband is moving significant assets offshore through a network of shell companies. Over $2 billion in the past month alone. Jennifer maintained her composure with effort. You've always been obsessed with Jeff's business. Why should I believe anything you say? Cuban slid an envelope across the table. Because unlike your friend Dwayne, I have no reason to lie to you. Jeff's not just hiding money from the government, he's hiding it from you. That's ridiculous. We have a prenup, but I'm well provided for. Are you? Cuban's eyes were surprisingly compassionate. Check the Cayman Islands account statements. Look at the trust amendments he had you sign last month. Did you read the fine print about contingent beneficiaries? Jennifer's hand instinctively went to her belly. The baby kicked, as if sensing her distress. Cuban stood, placing a business card beside her untouched drink. I'm not your enemy, Jennifer, but I'm the only person in your husband's orbit with nothing to lose by telling you the truth. Call me when you're ready to hear more. The penthouse was silent when Jennifer returned. She went directly to Jeff's home office, hesitating only briefly before entering the code to his private safe. Inside was the expected collection of passports, property deeds, and the external hard drive he never traveled without. Nothing suspicious. She turned to his computer, still logged in a rare oversight, opening his calendar. She saw the Seattle trip clearly marked, but also another entry overlapping St. Bart's Z. Her heart pounding, she clicked on his email. Most were work-related, but one conversation thread caught her eye: messages with an account labeled Only Z, discussing villa arrangements, preferences for champagne, and a private photo shoot. The television in the corner, perpetually tuned to financial news, suddenly caught her attention. Tech billionaire Jeff Bezos was spotted today at the exclusive Flamin's Beach in St. Bart's, the anchor announced as paparazzi footage showed Jeff helping a young woman out of a yacht tender. The woman's face was partially obscured by oversized sunglasses, but her lithe figure in a designer bikini was unmistakable. While the identity of Bezos's companion remains unknown, sources close to the e-commerce mogul insist the meeting was strictly business-related, potentially connected to his company's new entertainment division. Jennifer felt the room spin slightly. She gripped the edge of the desk, forcing herself to breathe deeply. The anchor continued, but her words faded into background noise as Jennifer's phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. Check your email. You deserve to know the truth. With trembling fingers, she opened her email to find a message with no text, only an attachment. The file contained dozens of photos, Jeff and a stunning young woman on a private beach, at exclusive restaurants, entering hotel suites. In several, they were embracing, kissing. The timestamps spanned months. In the most recent photos, dated just 2 days earlier, she could clearly see the woman's face: Zendaya, the 28-year-old model and actress whose career had skyrocketed in recent years. The doorbell rang, startling her so badly she nearly dropped her phone. She closed everything on Jeff's computer, trying to compose herself as she went to answer. Glenn Close stood in the hallway, her expression grave. I was in the building for another meeting. May I come in? Jennifer stepped aside wordlessly, her composure finally cracking as the door closed behind them. You knew. It wasn't a question, but Glenn nodded anyway. Not everything, but enough to be concerned. How long? Jennifer's voice was barely audible. The affair with Zendaya. Almost a year, but she's not the first. Jennifer. The older woman guided her to the sofa as her legs threatened to give way. I've been Jeff's attorney for 20 years. I've handled the NDAs, the settlements, the transitions, but this time is different. Because I'm pregnant, Jennifer whispered. Partly, but also because of the financial maneuvering. He's preparing for something bigger than a simple divorce. Jennifer looked up sharply. Divorce? Glenn's expression confirmed what she couldn't bring herself to say aloud. The plan, as I understand it, was to wait until after the baby's born. Less public backlash that way. He has a team preparing documentation, suggesting emotional instability on your part: postpartum depression, erratic behavior, potential risk to the child. That's insane. I'm not. Of course you're not. But perception is reality in cases like this, and Jeff controls the narrative. Glenn took her hand. I've helped him do terrible things to protect his empire. Things I can no longer justify to myself. Why are you telling me this? Won't this cost you your career? At 77, dear, my career concerns have a rather limited shelf life. A wry smile briefly softened her features. And perhaps I'm finally developing a conscience. Too late for his previous wives, but not for you. Jennifer froze. Previous wives, Jeff's only been married once before. To Mackenzie. Glenn's silence spoke volumes. How many? Jennifer demanded. Officially, just Mackenzie. Unofficially, you're the fourth. The others were earlier, before the spotlight, erased with money and legal threats. The room seemed to tilt again. The perfect life Jennifer had believed in crumbling like sand. Why help me now? Because unlike the others, you have something they didn't time to prepare. And me. Glenn's eyes hardened. And because I've watched him destroy enough women? Jennifer's phone buzzed again, another text from the unknown number with an attachment. This time security camera footage from the Burj Al Arab in Dubai, showing Jeff and Zendaya entering a suite, his hand possessively on the small of her back. He's in Dubai now, isn't he? Not Seattle. It wasn't a question. Glenn nodded. With Zendaya, they've been there 3 days. Something cold and resolute settled in Jennifer's chest, replacing the shock and pain. Tell me everything, and I mean everything. Glenn. The morning news played on the hospital room television as Jennifer lay connected to fetal monitors. The sudden cramping and spotting had sent her to the emergency room at 3 a.m., terrified for her baby. Your blood pressure is dangerously high, the doctor had told her. The baby is stable for now, but you need complete rest and minimal stress. Jennifer had laughed bitterly at that. Minimal stress. After discovering your billionaire husband's betrayal, his hidden wives, and his plans to take your child. The doctor had sedated her lightly, and now she drifted in and out of awareness as the news anchor's voice provided a surreal soundtrack. In business news, tech billionaire Jeff Bezos has announced a major new partnership with entertainment conglomerate Universal. The deal, reportedly worth over $4 billion, will expand his company's streaming platform significantly. The screen showed Jeff at a press conference, Zendaya standing nearby, introduced as the new creative director for original content. Her husband looked energized, triumphant, while she lay fighting to save their child. A nurse entered, checking the monitors. Your husband's assistant called. Mr. Bezos is flying back immediately and should be here by evening. Jennifer nodded, too exhausted to correct the assumption that this represented concern rather than damage control. Hours later, she awoke to find not Jeff but a courier delivering legal papers. Still groggy from medication, she opened the envelope to find divorce filings citing irreconcilable differences and an emergency motion for psychological evaluation, claiming her erratic behavior and emotional instability pose potential risks to the unborn child. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jeff. This is for the best. My lawyers will handle everything. Focus on staying calm for the baby's sake. The clinical detachment of his message broke something inside her. Tears came, not of sadness, but of pure rage. She was still crying when the door opened again, revealing the last person she expected. Zendaya entered, stunning even in casual designer wear, her expression a practiced mask of concern. Mrs. Bezos, I hoped we could talk. Jennifer wiped her tears, a strange calm descending. About what? How long you've been sleeping with my husband, or the role you'll play in my child's life once he takes custody. If Zendaya was surprised by her directness, she didn't show it. She closed the door and moved closer. I'm not here as your enemy. Really, the divorce papers delivered to my hospital bed suggest otherwise. Jeff doesn't know I'm here. Zendaya glanced at the monitors, then back to Jennifer. I need you to understand something important. Your cooperation in this divorce will be generously rewarded. Your resistance will be costly. Threatening a pregnant woman in the hospital, classy, not a threat, a business proposition. Zendaya's voice remained even. Jeff values discretion above all. The documents you've seen regarding his financial activities in the Cayman Islands and Dubai, they must remain private. Jennifer's pulse quickened. What documents? A flicker of uncertainty crossed Zendaya's perfect features. The ones Mark Cuban provided? Don't play naive, it doesn't suit you. And if these hypothetical documents became public, then instead of walking away with a generous settlement, you'd be implicated in international financial crimes. Jeff's lawyers have ensured your signatures are on key papers. You'd lose everything, including your child. The monitoring equipment beeped as Jennifer's heart rate increased. Get out! Zendaya stood, smoothing her designer jeans. Consider carefully, Jennifer. Women who challenge Jeff tend to disappear from public life entirely. I'd hate to see that happen to you and your baby. After she left, Jennifer lay in the darkening room, one hand protectively over her belly. We're going to be okay, she whispered to her unborn child. Mommy's going to fix this. She reached for her phone, scrolling to Glenn's number. I need your help, she texted, and I'm ready to fight. 1 week later, the lock to the penthouse had been changed. Jennifer stood in the private hallway, her hospital discharge papers in one hand, keycard rejected by the security system. Mrs. Bezos, the building's security chief, approached uncomfortably. I'm afraid I have to ask you to come with me. This is my home, she said, fatigue and anger making her voice shake. I have instructions from Mr. Bezos' security team. For your own well-being, you're to be escorted to the Carlisle Hotel where a suite has been arranged. My clothes, my personal items, have been packed and delivered to the suite. He wouldn't meet her eyes. There's also an envelope from Mr. Bezos' attorneys. The humiliation of being escorted through the lobby by security burned through her exhaustion. In the waiting town car, she opened the envelope to find a temporary restraining order prohibiting her from contacting Jeff directly, citing harassment and unstable behavior. Attached was a psychological assessment she'd never undergone, diagnosing her with paranoid tendencies exacerbated by hormonal changes. At the Carlisle, the suite was impersonal, despite containing her belongings. On the desk sat another envelope, a preliminary settlement offer contingent on her full confidentiality and cooperation. The figure was substantial, $25 million, but a pittance compared to Jeff's wealth, and came with severe custody restrictions labeled as, for the child's stability and safety. Her phone rang. Dwayne Johnson. Jennifer, thank God. I've been worried sick. Have you? She asked coldly. Look, this situation is out of control. Jeff is concerned about your mental health. Jeff is concerned about his reputation and his money. Dwayne, don't insult me by pretending otherwise. A heavy sigh. I'm trying to help you. This path you're on, challenging him, it won't end well. I've seen what happens to people who cross Jeff. People like his previous wives, the ones erased from history. Silence. Then, who's been filling your head with these conspiracy theories? This is exactly what Jeff is worried about. Funny how my sanity wasn't questioned until I discovered his affair. Jennifer, please, let me help mediate. I can get Jeff to increase the settlement significantly, but you need to sign the confidentiality agreements and stop talking to people like Mark Cuban and Glenn Close. The mention of Glenn sent a chill through her. How do you know I've spoken to Glenn? Another pause. Jeff has concerns about her loyalty. She's being replaced as counsel. You're spying on me. Monitoring a mentally fragile pregnant woman is not spying. It's responsible. She hung up, hands shaking. Within minutes, her phone chimed with alerts her credit cards were declined. Banking apps showed accounts frozen, and an email arrived from her obstetrician regretfully informing her that they could no longer serve as her doctor due to insurance complications. In less than an hour, Jeff had begun erasing her financial existence. The knock at her door startled her. Through the peephole, she saw Glenn, looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen the immaculate attorney. We need to move quickly, Glenn said once inside, her voice low. They've frozen your accounts. Jennifer nodded. Expected. I brought cash and a secure phone. She handed over an envelope and a basic prepaid phone. My apartment is being watched, and I suspect this hotel is as well. A car is waiting at the service entrance. Where are we going? Somewhere they won't look. But first, Glenn held out a tablet. We need to document your current condition and record a statement about the psychological evaluation forgery, date and timestamp, everything. As Jennifer changed into the nondescript clothes Glenn had brought, the older woman continued, Dwayne will have told Jeff about our communication. They'll accelerate their plans, which are to isolate you completely, make you desperate enough to accept their terms. If that fails, they'll find ways to demonstrate you're unfit to challenge Jeff or care for your child. Jennifer paused, one hand instinctively protecting her belly. Can they really take my baby? Glenn's expression softened momentarily. Not if I have anything to say about it. Now come, we have powerful allies waiting. The somewhere they won't look turned out to be a modest brownstone in Brooklyn, owned by a retired judge who owed Glenn a favor. Inside, Mark Cuban waited, along with a woman Glenn introduced as Rachel, a forensic accountant specializing in offshore holdings. You're taking an enormous risk, Jennifer said to Cuban as they gathered around a dining table covered with financial documents. Jeff will know you're helping me. Jeff and I have been adversaries for 20 years. This changes nothing. Cuban's expression was grim. Except that now I have evidence of his financial crimes that would interest several federal agencies. Rachel spread out account statements. Your husband has been systematically moving assets to these shell companies, many listing you as a director without your knowledge. Your electronic signatures appear on dozens of documents. Can we prove I didn't sign them? With time, yes. But time is what we don't have, Glenn interjected. Jeff's legal team filed emergency motions this morning, seeking exclusive interim custody upon the child's birth, citing your flight risk and paranoid behavior. They've been planning this for months, Cuban added. The affair with Zendaya is almost secondary. She's just the public face to normalize the divorce. The real issue is the restructuring of his assets before the government's antitrust case proceeds. Jennifer tried to absorb the magnitude of the betrayal. So I'm just collateral damage. You and your child both, Glenn confirmed. Unless we act quickly, I've prepared counter filings challenging the psychiatric evaluation and requesting financial discovery. We also need to secure your prenuptial agreement, which should be in the personal safe at the Aspen house. I can access it, Jennifer said. I designed the security system myself. Too risky, Cuban objected. They're watching all properties. Not if we have help, Jennifer turned to Glenn. You mentioned other wives, previous ones that Jeff erased. Can we find them? A slow smile spread across Glenn's face. The first one has been waiting 15 years for this moment, and she has a copy of every document we need. For the first time since discovering Jeff's betrayal, Jennifer felt a spark of hope. It faded quickly as her phone chimed with a news alert. Jeff and Zendaya, photographed leaving his Seattle headquarters, her hand resting possessively on his arm. The caption read, Bezos and rumored girlfriend Zendaya announce major philanthropic initiative for children's hospitals. Using children for positive PR while plotting to take her own child, the calculated cruelty stole her breath. He'll use every advantage, Glenn warned, noting her expression. Wealth, media connections, your pregnancy vulnerability. The question is, are you prepared to fight just as ruthlessly? Jennifer looked around at her unlikely allies, then down at the evidence of her husband's deception. Her hand moved protectively to her belly, feeling her child kick strongly. Yes, she said quietly, steel entering her voice. I'm ready to burn his world down. 3 days later, the Brooklyn brownstone had become command central for what Cuban jokingly called Operation Phoenix. Jennifer had grown to appreciate the irony rising from the ashes of her marriage to destroy the man who thought he'd destroyed her. Glenn entered, bringing coffee and news. Jeff's team is accelerating. They filed motions suggesting you fled the country to avoid psychological evaluation. They're painting you as increasingly unstable. What about our counter filings? Judge Morris is reviewing them, but Jeff has tremendous influence in Manhattan courts. Jennifer nodded, unsurprised. And the meeting with wife number one. Tonight, Catherine has been living under another identity since their divorce. She's taking an enormous risk meeting you. Rachel looked up from her laptop. I've identified over 30 shell companies with Jennifer listed as an officer. The paper trail connecting them to Jeff is deliberately obscured, but it exists. Enough to interest the SEC, Cuban asked. Enough to interest several three-letter agencies, Rachel confirmed. The burner phone Glenn had given Jennifer rang an unknown number. Mrs. Bezos, this is Detective Ramirez, NYPD. We're investigating a break-in at your residence at 432 Park Avenue. Her pulse quickened. I haven't been there in over a week. Yes, ma'am. Building security reported you attempted unauthorized access 7 days ago. However, we have surveillance footage of someone matching your description entering last night using service corridors. That's impossible. Glenn motioned for her to end the call. Detective, I'm currently staying at the Carlisle Hotel on my husband's instruction. I have witnesses who can verify my whereabouts. Please contact my attorney, Glenn Close. She hung up, blood running cold. They're framing me for something. Standard playbook, Cuban said grimly. They'll discover something in the penthouse drugs. Perhaps, or evidence you've been in contact with questionable individuals. Further proof of your instability. We need to accelerate our timeline, Glenn decided. I'll move the meeting with Catherine forward, and Jennifer needs to be seen publicly somewhere unimpeachable to counter this narrative. The Children's Hospital fundraiser, Cuban suggested. It's tonight at the Metropolitan Museum. Very public. Full of witnesses who can vouch for her behavior. Jennifer shook her head. Jeff and Zendaya will be there. It's their event. Exactly, Glenn said, a gleam in her eye. What better way to demonstrate your stability than to calmly face your husband and his mistress at a charity event? It completely undermines their narrative. Plus, Cuban added with a wolfish grin, the press will eat it up. The wronged pregnant wife confronting the billionaire and his young girlfriend, every camera will be on you, which means every moment will be documented. No opportunity for them to claim erratic behavior. The plan was audacious, dangerous, and potentially brilliant. For the first time, Jennifer could see a path forward. I'll need something to wear, she said finally. Something that makes pregnancy look like power. The Metropolitan Museum of Art glowed against the evening sky. Red carpet rolled out for New York's elite, attending the Children's Future Foundation Gala. Jennifer arrived alone, her 7-month pregnant belly accentuated rather than hidden by a custom-designed deep blue gown that managed to convey both vulnerability and strength. Flashbulbs exploded as she emerged from the town car. Reporters shouting questions. Jennifer, are you here to confront Jeff and Zendaya? Mrs. Bezos, is it true you've been hospitalized for emotional distress? Jennifer, how do you feel about your husband's new relationship? She smiled serenely, offering only a simple statement. I'm here to support children's health care, which has always been a cause close to my heart, especially now. Her hand rested protectively on her belly, creating the perfect photo opportunity. Inside, she felt rather than saw the ripple of awareness as attendees noticed her arrival. Conversations paused, heads turned, whispers followed in her wake. She moved with deliberate grace toward the main gallery where the silent auction was underway. And there they were, Jeff and Zendaya, holding court among adoring sycophants. Jeff froze mid-sentence when he spotted her, his expression cycling rapidly through shock, anger, and calculation before settling on a practiced public smile. Zendaya recovered more quickly, whispering something in his ear before plastering on her own camera-ready smile. Together they moved toward Jennifer, the crowd parting around them like the Red Sea. Jennifer, Jeff's voice carried just the right note of concerned ex-husband. This is unexpected. Should you be out in your condition? My doctors encourage moderate activity, she replied, equally poised. And I wouldn't miss supporting such an important cause. Cameras clicked furiously around them, capturing the tableau the billionaire, his pregnant, soon-to-be ex-wife, and his gorgeous young girlfriend, all smiling with civilized venom. Zendaya, lovely to see you again, Jennifer continued, extending her hand. Your work with the foundation is commendable. The younger woman took her hand, perfectly manicured nails pressing slightly too hard. We're so passionate about children's welfare. All children deserve protection and stability. The threat beneath the platitude was unmistakable. Couldn't agree more, Jennifer replied, maintaining her smile for the cameras. In fact, I've just committed a personal donation of $1 million to the Foundation's maternal health initiative. Jeff's smile tightened. The donation would come from accounts he hadn't yet managed to freeze. How generous, he said, a warning in his eyes. We should talk privately, Jennifer, about your health and other concerns. My health is excellent, thank you, as my new medical team will attest. A commotion at the entrance provided a welcome interruption. Dwayne Johnson had arrived, immediately surrounded by admirers. His eyes found their awkward trio, and he headed toward them with determined strides. There's Dwayne, Jeff said. He's been worried about you. Jennifer, we all have. I'm sure. Her smile never faltered. So many people concerned about my welfare lately. It's touching. Dwayne reached them, his celebrity presence drawing even more attention. Jennifer, thank God you're okay. We've been trying to reach you. I've been well cared for, she replied, though I had to change phones after mine was mysteriously compromised. Such an invasion of privacy. Dwayne's expression flickered with unease. We should talk, privately. Actually, she said, voice carrying just enough to be overheard by nearby guests. I'm avoiding private conversations these days. Too many of my words seem to be misrepresented or used against me. Jeff took her elbow, his grip firm. 5 minutes. Jennifer, that's all I ask. She allowed herself to be guided toward a relatively quiet alcove, aware of the eyes following them, including Dwayne and Zendaya's. Perfect witnesses for whatever happened next. What the hell are you playing at? Jeff hissed once they had the illusion of privacy. You were supposed to quietly accept the settlement, like your other wives did. She kept her voice level, her expression pleasant for distant observers. His eyes narrowed. Glenn has been filling your head with paranoid fantasies. Strange how everyone who tells me truth about you is dismissed as paranoid or unstable. You're making a spectacle of yourself. No, I'm demonstrating my perfect mental health and reasonable behavior for about 300 witnesses, including 30 members of the press. She smiled sweetly. How's that psychological evaluation narrative working out? For a moment, raw fury transformed his face before he regained control. You have no idea what you're up against. I built an empire by destroying obstacles. Don't become one. Threats now. With all these cameras, bold strategy. Not a threat, a reality check. You've been speaking to Mark Cuban, accessing private corporate documents, making wild accusations about offshore accounts. That's corporate espionage, Jennifer. Interesting. I never mentioned Mark or offshore accounts to anyone but Glenn. So either you've been surveilling my private conversations, or Dwayne has been reporting to you. Either way, that's evidence I'll be happy to present in court. Jeff's mask slipped further. There won't be a court battle. My offer expires at midnight. After that, you get nothing, no money, no property, and most importantly, no unsupervised access to our child. The casual cruelty with which he threatened to separate her from her baby ignited something primal in Jennifer. Still, she maintained her public composure, aware of the watching eyes. I'll see you in court. Jeff, every day of a very public trial, I wonder how your shareholders will react to the evidence Glenn has compiled, or the testimony from your previous wives. He went completely still. You're bluffing. Catherine signed ironclad agreements. Agreements predicated on your compliance with certain terms you violated. This was a shot in the dark based on Glenn's hints, but Jeff's expression confirmed she'd hit the mark. You can't win this, he said, voice deadly quiet. I don't need to win. I just need to ensure that if I burn, you burn with me. She placed a protective hand over her belly. Now excuse me. I see the governor waiting to speak with me about the maternal health initiative I'm founding. She walked away, feeling Jeff's glare burning into her back. As she moved through the crowd, she caught sight of Zendaya watching her with an unreadable expression, calculation, perhaps, or something more complex. The night continued, a masterclass in strategic appearances. Jennifer spoke with key figures in New York society, granted a brief, poised interview to a sympathetic reporter, and made sure to be photographed laughing and engaged, the opposite of the unstable woman Jeff's legal team was depicting. As she prepared to leave, Dwayne intercepted her near the coat check. This isn't helping anyone. Jennifer, let me drive you back to the hotel. We can talk through options that don't involve mutual destruction. Mutual? She raised an eyebrow. Jeff would barely feel a scratch. I'd be annihilated. That's not true. He's authorized me to offer triple the original settlement. 90 million. Jennifer, plus the Aspen property and generous visitation. Visitation to see my own child. She kept her voice down but couldn't hide her disgust. Tell Jeff he can keep his money. I want my life back, my identity back, and my child fully. Be reasonable. I have been reasonable. For 7 years. Look where it got me. She turned to go, then paused. You've been his friend for decades. Dwayne, has it ever occurred to you to ask why his wives keep disappearing, or why he needs so many NDAs and settlement agreements? Something flickered in Dwayne's eyes, doubt. Perhaps. She pressed the advantage. Glenn has evidence. Dwayne. Solid evidence. When this explodes, anyone standing too close to Jeff gets burned too, including you. She left him standing there, striding out into the cool night air with newfound confidence. The performance had been perfect, poised, dignified, and most importantly, captured by dozens of cameras and witnesses who could counter Jeff's narrative of instability. In the town car, she finally let her shoulders slump, exhaustion washing over her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Glenn. Perfect execution. Meet Catherine in 30. Evidence secured. For the first time in weeks, Jennifer allowed herself to feel a flicker of genuine hope. The game was far from over, but at least now she was a player, not just a pawn. The car turned toward Brooklyn, toward the next phase of a plan that would either save her and her child or destroy them all. The nondescript coffee shop in Park Slope seemed an unlikely place for a meeting that could change the course of a billionaire's empire. Jennifer sat in a back booth, a baseball cap and glasses providing minimal disguise, waiting for Glenn and the mysterious Catherine. They arrived separately, Glenn first, then a slender woman in her 50s with silver-streaked dark hair and watchful eyes. Without the fillers and procedures that marked most women in Jeff's orbit, Catherine's face showed the character of her experiences, fine lines around her eyes and mouth suggesting she had once laughed easily. Jennifer, Catherine's voice was soft but steady. I've followed your situation closely. I'm sorry you've joined our unfortunate sorority. Our Jeff's discarded wives. There are 3 of us before you. Mackenzie was just the only public one. Glenn placed a small device on the table. Signal jammer. We have 15 minutes before it looks suspicious. Catherine didn't waste time. I was wife number 1, 1992 to 1997 before the company went public. No children, thankfully. Melissa was next, 1999 to 2002. She had a son. Jennifer's breath caught. Jeff has another child. Had. Catherine's expression darkened. Joint custody initially, until the boy died in an accident at Jeff's Aspen house. Drowning, ruled accidental, but Melissa always had questions. She's in a residential facility now. Mental breakdown. My God. The patterns were established early, Catherine continued. The affairs, the gaslighting, the psychological warfare. By wife 3 Amanda, 2003 to 2008, he had refined his techniques, isolated her completely, convinced even her family she was unstable. She took her own life in 2010. Jennifer felt sick, her hand instinctively moving to protect her unborn child. And Mackenzie, the only one who got out with her dignity and a fair settlement. She had leveraged the rest of us, didn't she? Help build the company? And by then, Jeff couldn't risk the public scandal of another hidden wife emerging. Plus, she knew where all the bodies were buried. Figuratively speaking, Glenn checked her watch. Catherine has something for you. Something Jeff would kill to recover. From her bag, Catherine removed a weathered leather portfolio. When we divorced, Jeff was still building his empire. I was a paralegal. I kept copies of everything, including documents he doesn't know exist. Original incorporation papers with provisions he later violated. Tax strategies that skirted legality. And most importantly, the real agreements with his early investors. How does this help me? Because, Glenn interjected, these documents prove that much of Jeff's early funding came from sources he concealed from the SEC. Sources that would trigger significant regulatory investigations if revealed. I've kept these safe for 25 years, Catherine said, waiting for the right moment, the right person. I believe that's you. Jennifer. Jennifer leafed through the portfolio, recognizing their potential value but overwhelmed by the implications. Why me? Why now? Catherine's eyes hardened. Because you're carrying his child. Because you have resources and allies the rest of us didn't. And because, unlike Amanda and Melissa, you're still fighting. Jeff will claim these are forgeries. He can try, but I also kept recordings. Back then, digital surveillance was primitive. He never suspected the nanny cams were recording his business meetings too. Glenn looked at her watch again. We need to go. Separately, Catherine stood, then hesitated. One more thing. Jeff's pattern is to escalate when threatened. Melissa's son died during their custody battle. Amanda's suicide came after she threatened to speak to journalists. Her eyes bored into Jennifer's. Watch your back. Protect your baby. And trust no one, especially those closest to Jeff. After Catherine left, Jennifer turned to Glenn. Is she credible about the son's death and Amanda's suicide? I represented Jeff in both situations, Glenn said, her expression haunted. I told myself I was just doing my job, that the evidence supported the official findings. But deep down, I've had doubts for years. Why help me now? Why risk everything? Because I'm 77 years old and facing my maker soon enough. And because history doesn't need to keep repeating, Glenn squeezed her hand. Catherine's documents give us leverage. But we need to move quickly. Jeff will have people looking for you after tonight's appearance. They parted ways. Jennifer returning to the Brooklyn safe house with the precious portfolio. Her mind raced with strategies and fears. Catherine's warnings echoing. If even half of what she'd said was true, Jeff was more dangerous than she'd imagined. In the quiet of her room, Jennifer spread the documents across the bed, photographing each with her secure phone. Insurance, in case the originals were discovered. As she worked, a text arrived from an unknown number. You impressed many people tonight, including me. We should talk. I'm not the enemy you think I am. Zendaya reaching out directly, Jennifer hesitated, then saved the number without responding. Another piece on the chessboard, though whether ally or adversary remained to be seen. She continued photographing documents until a sound downstairs froze her, the distinct click of the front door opening. Glenn and Cuban both had keys, but neither was expected back tonight. Heart pounding, Jennifer quickly gathered the documents and phone, sliding them under the mattress before moving silently to the bedroom door. The house was dark except for the small lamp in her room, making it impossible to see down the stairs. But she could hear footsteps heavy, deliberate moving through the first floor. Not Glenn, not Cuban. Her hand went to her belly, protective instinct surging. The footsteps started up the stairs slow, measured. Jennifer looked around desperately for a weapon, grabbing a heavy crystal paperweight from the nightstand. She positioned herself behind the door, breath held, as the footsteps reached the landing. A floorboard creaked just outside her room. The doorknob turned slowly. Jennifer raised the paperweight, prepared to fight for her life and her child's. The door swung open. Jennifer! Dwayne Johnson's massive silhouette filled the doorway. Thank God you're all right. She kept the paperweight raised. How did you find me? I followed Glenn from the cafe. He stepped into the room, hands raised non-threateningly. I'm not here for Jeff. I swear. We need to talk. About what? About the fact that you're in danger, and not just from Jeff. His expression was grave in the lamplight. What you said at the gala about his previous wives. I started asking questions I should have asked years ago. Why should I trust you? You've been his enforcer for years. Because I think he might have been involved in Amanda's death. And because I'm not willing to be part of whatever he's planning for you. Jennifer lowered the paperweight slightly. What do you know, not here? Dwayne glanced around nervously. This place isn't secure. Jeff's had it under surveillance since yesterday. Her blood ran cold. That's not possible. Only Glenn and Cuban know your medication at the hospital. It was compromised. They placed a tracker. Seeing her expression, he added, not my operation. I just found out tonight when Jeff ordered a retrieval team to this address. A retrieval team. Private security, former military. They're on their way now. He extended his hand. I have a car 3 blocks away. If we leave now, we can disappear before they arrive. Jennifer stared at his outstretched hand. Mind racing. Trust Dwayne. Jeff's oldest friend, or risk capture by unknown operatives. The documents, she said. I need to get Catherine's portfolio. Dwayne nodded. Quickly. She retrieved the portfolio and phone from under the mattress, shoving them into a small backpack along with essentials. As they moved toward the stairs, headlights swept across the front windows. Back door, Dwayne whispered, guiding her through the kitchen. They slipped into the small backyard just as the front door opened. Through the window, Jennifer glimpsed men in dark clothing entering the house. They moved swiftly through neighboring yards, emerging 3 streets over where an unmarked SUV waited. Dwayne helped her inside, then took the wheel, driving with practiced precision through Brooklyn's side streets. Where are we going? Jennifer asked, clutching the backpack with Catherine's documents. Somewhere Jeff would never think to look for you. Dwayne's expression was grim in the dashboard light. Somewhere you'll be safe until we can get you out of the country. I'm not leaving the country, she said firmly. I'm not running. Jennifer, you don't understand what you're up against. Jeff isn't just wealthy, he's ruthless. I've seen what happens to people who threaten what he values. His money, his reputation. Yes, Dwayne's hands tightened on the wheel. I always looked the other way, told myself it was just business. But this targeting a pregnant woman, his own child, I can't be part of it. They drove in silence for several minutes, Jennifer watching for signs of pursuit. Finally, Dwayne spoke again. What's your endgame here? What do you hope to achieve? Justice, she said simply. For myself, my baby, and the women before me. And if justice costs you everything, your safety, your future, possibly even your child. Jennifer placed a protective hand over her belly, feeling her baby kick as if in response. Some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Dwayne nodded slowly, pulling onto the highway heading north out of the city. Then let's make sure you live to fight another day. The SUV accelerated into the night, carrying Jennifer toward an uncertain sanctuary while behind them. Jeff's operatives discovered the empty safe house and the first failure in the billionaire's carefully orchestrated plan. In the darkness of the moving vehicle, Jennifer opened her phone to find another message from Zendaya. They're tracking you. Ditch the SUV at the next rest stop. I'll have someone waiting. Trust me or don't, but Jeff plans to institutionalize you tonight. Jennifer stared at the message, then at Dwayne's profile as he drove, his expression unreadable in the dim light. Friend or foe, savior or captor. The next rest stop sign appeared ahead. She had minutes to decide whom to trust, Jeff's oldest friend or his newest lover. Her hand moved to the door handle. Decision made.